Welcome back to tonight's Big Picture Rumble. With me tonight, Mark Harold, Nicole Williams, Dutch Martin. Let's get back to it. Iceland is sending their banksters to prison. 4 Icelandic banksters have been literally sent to jail. The CEO of Kaupthing Bank, the biggest bank in Iceland, the CEO, the Jamie Dimon of Iceland, just got 5.5 years in prison. The former chairman of the bank also got 5 years in prison. Who also would be Jamie Dimon? Is he the CEO and the chairman? I don't know. Whatever. And the Lloyd Blank fine. Why can't we send our banksters to jail? Ronald Reagan sent banksters to jail. I mean, Charles Keating, Ronald Reagan threw his butt in jail, and much to John McCain's chagrin. But still, Nicole, why aren't we doing this?
I mean, Senator Warner, she asked the same question, I think, a couple months ago in one of the committee hearings. Doesn't this activity borderline on criminal? Some of the things that these banks have been getting away with, the reason that we got into the recession to begin with in 2008, someone needs to pay the price for it. And I understand, they're, now giving billions of dollars now to the federal government to, in terms of settlement for these various lawsuits with the DOJ. But is that really enough?
JP Morgan just admitted not just to screwing up or something or breaking rules, but to crimes, actual, a criminal admission. And, it's like if the 4 of us had gotten together after a show and, gone down and robbed the bank down here, and just made off with, say, $500 a piece, and then said, "Oh, yeah, we admit it. Here's $1,000. We'll pay a fine."
Right.
I don't think they would have that conversation. So it's like, why is it, Mark?
Well, this is crony
when the banksters do it.
This is crony capitalism, and they're too big to fail. They're too big to jail. You really aren't going after anything. First of all, the laws are written in a way that are usually forgiving to the corporate actors in the first place. So if you can actually be convicted, then they're going to give them light sentences. White-collar crime is traditionally given a lesser sentence. But where does this come from? It comes from, if you look at the contributions to the major party candidates in both parties, Goldman Sachs is right up there towards the top in both parties. It's interesting. I was just walked past the Treasury building. What's right across from the Treasury building? A Bank of America. It's right there. You can look out the windows and see it. Look, this is very much bought and paid for, but it's true. It's too big to fail, so they bail them out. And then they're too big to jail. I know I'm using that over, but they're not going to put these guys in prison. These are major players in this town, and the government's pretty much bought and paid for.
Yeah. So, Dutch, do we stop the bought and paid for by repealing the Citizens United?
Unfortunately, no, because as Mark said, that's basically how things work. I don't like it. I mean,
it's not how they worked in 1985 when Reagan sent, or 86 when Reagan sent.
No, but you know what? I'm not going to make excuses or rationalize when it comes to breaking the law. I think it's wrong. But like Mark said, the reality in which we live is that crony capitalism
so how do we
buys
change
you a get out of jail free card.
How do we change it?
How do we change it? Well, it all comes down to the individual. When there is enough groundswell, outrage, and backlash by ordinary citizens, then something is going to change.
So we got to get out in the streets. I thought that's what the Occupy movement was all about. Well, so you're down with the Occupy movement here.
I didn't say I was with the Occupy movement. I'm with the Dutch Martin movement.
Okay.
Basically saying, it's all up to the individual. My thing is this: if it adversely affects me, then yes, I'm going to say something. Okay, not to minimize it, but at the same time,
crashed our country.
Look, yeah, exactly, and
threw millions of people out of their homes.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's divorces, there's suicides, there's probably child abuse and even homicides.
And it's
consequence
horrible.
of what these banksters did.
Horrible.
And Jamie Dimon is still pulling down millions of dollars a week. I mean, or a month or whatever.
It's that, like Mark said, it's that crony capitalism. I mean, unfortunately, at least in this life, some people do not pay for their crimes.
Okay, well, Elizabeth Warren, as Nicole pointed out, Senator Elizabeth Warren seems to be the only person who's seriously taking this stuff on. After this third way think tank, which turns out their entire board of directors is all investment bankers, not the entire, but the vast majority of their board of directors are investment bankers. After they attacked her in a Wall Street Journal article saying that she was leading Democrats over the populist cliff, was their phrase, she sent them a letter saying, who are you funding? Which think tanks are you funding? And it was very interesting. Here's a clip of Elizabeth Warren talking about this.
Anyone else want to tell me about the last time you took a Wall Street bank to trial? I just want to note on this. There are district attorneys and U.S. attorneys who are out there every day squeezing ordinary citizens on sometimes very thin grounds and taking them to trial in order to make an example, as they put it. I'm really concerned that too big to fail has become too big for trial. That just seems wrong to me.
Yeah, and the big question is, why is it only Elizabeth Warren? Why is Ted Cruz not saying this, the great populist who's going to occupy the floor of the Senate? Why is John McCain, the maverick, not talking about this? I mean, he should have some experience. I mean, he was part of the Keating Five. He'd been, basically bribed by the SNL guys before. You'd think he's learned from it, and he'd be, out there saying, hey, it's, or Harry Reid or Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton. I mean, why is it that on both sides of the aisle, crickets, Dutch?
Again, banks are big political contributors, number one. Number two.
So let's get the money out of politics.
Okay, well, we can talk about that till the cows come home. But number two, I think I'm going to play devil's advocate and say I think that Senator Warren has a bit of a thin skin, because when these bank folks criticized her in the Wall Street Journal, she decided to go after them in a backdoor type of way, saying, okay, who are you funding? Okay, where you get your money from? Well, I mean, number one, think tanks and banks are under no legal obligation to divulge that information unless under, federal subpoena or something like that. Right. Personally, I mean, I don't want to minimize Senator Warren's concerns, but I think she needs to toughen up a little bit.
Well, I think that's what she's doing. Nicole.
Yeah, first of all, I don't think she has a thin skin. I think that she's asking the questions that all of us should be asking. She's the only one out there asking the tough questions. And it's a transparency thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking a corporation or asking any other entity to be transparent with the source of their funding. That's all she's stating.
But why is she asking that all of a sudden?
She's been asking this her whole entire career.
Yeah.
She started the Consumer Protection Bureau.
That's her background. Her background is consumer protection, bankruptcy, looking out for the little people. That is what she's been known for years.
And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And she has every right to advocate that.
But I mean, it works with the American people, Mark. People want somebody to take on the banksters.
Well, I think people do. Listen,
why is there not a Republican jumping on this bandwagon?
Well, because again, they used to say bank robbers robbed banks because that's where the money was. Politicians go to banks because that's where the money is. Right. They need to run these races. They've gotten very expensive, and yeah, absolutely. But what's happening here? I would be completely against. I mean, there are disclosure laws, there's subpoena, there's service of process that they would have to disclose this. But she's asking the question. They don't necessarily have to answer it if they really don't want to. But I don't think there's anything wrong with an elected leader standing up and just asking this question. Where are you getting your money? We disagree on Citizens United on this panel, but I don't know many people that disagree with the second part, the 8-to-1 about transparency. Transparency in this country, and Jay Carney was taking it from the press this week, transparency in this country needs to become an issue that's not partisan. If anything, we can disagree on the issues, but we need to know what's going on out there.
Like knowing what's in our food.
Well, no, I think we can demand, but what's in our food is a little bit different.
Why?
Because what's in our food is something the market will react to. She has the right to ask this question. They don't have to answer it. I don't think every think tank should have to come out with...
that's where I don't think that there is a market.
I see a distinction.
I think the market is so consolidated by monopolists in the food industry, just like it is in the banking industry, that there's no such thing as a free market anymore. Basically, what we have is crony capitalism and monopoly.
I think we have a great deal of crony capitalism. I don't think there's any question about that.
Okay, and one of the consequences of this is that people are working for less than $15 an hour. A study just came out showing, this is from the Alliance for Just Society, that between the official end of the recession and 2012, the total number of jobs in categories in which the median wage is less than $15 an hour increased by more than 3.6 million, while those jobs paying $15 an hour or more decreased by 4 million. In other words, good-paying jobs are disappearing and being replaced by low-wage jobs that make it nearly impossible to, well, I wouldn't say survive, but certainly very, very difficult to raise a family. And isn't this a demonstration that Nicole, that the government should be the employer of last resort, that it's time for us to go back to what FDR did and say, if capitalism has failed, if businesses will not hire people, I will hire people. Bring back the WPA and CCC.
One, I agree. I mean, with the sequester, it's a good example of when the government loses jobs, how that affects the economy, and when the government hires people, how that also affects the economy and affects the middle class, so to speak, here in the United States. And I think what you're seeing, this is just an example, really, of the shrinking of the middle class, is what is kind of
And
the
the
way.
expansion of the working poor.
Exactly. It's the way that I see this. And this is just part of why you have this movement going on in a variety of different states. I live in Maryland, and actually in the county where I live in, you know, our county council had passed a bill to increase the minimum wage. And so you see this movement going on all across the country, in Maryland, in DC, in Washington state, to increase the minimum wage above from the federal minimum wage, because there's no way a person can survive by just making the minimum wage. Heaven forbid they're married with children. There's no way a family of four can survive off of even $11 an hour, let alone what the current federal minimum wage is. And so yeah, I mean, if the minimum wage was based off of inflation, it would be roughly about $10 or so an hour right now. But
yeah, and if it was based on productivity, it would be $20 an hour.
Right.
I mean, this is what the corporate CEOs are making. I mean, if it was based on what corporate CEOs are making, it would be closer to $30 or $40 an hour. But productivity has gone up, so it would be $20 an hour. Dutch, you wanted to?
Okay, well, here, let me just say this. Okay, from an economic standpoint, all right, if you're taking a minimum wage job and you expect that to be your career, you've got bigger problems on your hands. Having said that, look, a minimum wage job is not supposed to be a long-term thing. It's supposed to be for those who are just starting out.
But our trade policies have made it so.
Right, and I agree with you on that, but the problem is that you have people who aren't able to get those jobs that are higher than minimum wage. That's part of the problem. You have a lot of people, I mean, the studies have shown that jobs that pay roughly $15 an hour, there's 7 people applying on average for that one particular job. When you get to higher status, to higher dollar amounts, you have more and more people applying for these higher wage jobs. You just aren't. If the jobs were there, people would take them. They're not there. They're still resorting to working at McDonald's, working to Wendy's, doing anything that they can to put food on the table to feed their kids.
Okay, since you big government folks are all about the government stepping in, here's the best way that the government can step in to increase jobs. Lower taxes. That's what Reagan did.
Really,
that's exactly
that's really
what jump-started the economy. That's exactly what increased
roll back
jobs.
the Reagan tax cuts. Mark, the last 20 seconds are yours.
There should be no minimum wage. It prices the most vulnerable people out of the market. The idea that, I know we're short on time, but I'd say the idea of the government coming in and not only wanting to raise the minimum wage, it's going to really make it harder for some people to buy those products at the Walmarts, at the McDonald's. But the idea that they would guarantee you a job, I mean, they're going to guarantee you health insurance, they're going to guarantee you a job. Obviously, I'm against all these things.
This is one of the rights.
There's no way you can.
Second Bill of Rights.
I mean, this is clearly getting into nanny state.
We are out of time. Mark, Nicole, Dutch, thank you so much for being here.